anyways, but just want to give you a heads up. I just started recording. Yeah, so anyways, I'm doing this presentation on herbs for self-care. I love herbalism, I love herbs. I have so much information packed in here, and I hope that I will give you enough, and not too much, hopefully not just, you know, throwing a bunch of herb knowledge at you. Hopefully stuff that you can really like integrate into your daily lives. Because for me, that's where herbalism has been really powerful, integrating it into my life. So here's my Instagram handle at Myal Medicinals. I have Facebook. I'm also doing an astrology class soon. That's the link. And let's get started. That's my glamour shot. I like to say that I'm an herb nerd and astro ho, because I'm really into astrology and herbalism, and also the intersection between the two, but I won't be talking about that right now. And then that's my Twitter, but I'm actually never on Twitter, so I don't know why I put that. But I also have a personal Instagram that's Dunksy. You can add me really anywhere. And yeah, let's get started. So we'll be covering today keeping our light strong. You know, that probably doesn't mean anything right now, but hopefully it will in a second. Talk about dysregulation, why herbs, and we'll go over oil-based herbal medicine, some foods, water-based herbal medicine, alcohol-based, also alternatives, and then some herbs and their uses, and then other aspects of self-care, and then we'll close. So as I said before, it's kind of packed. So I really love this quote by Maya Angelou, nothing can dim the light that shines from within. And the way I see self-care is I see self-care as a way of keeping our inner light strong. So basically we develop our personal care tools as an investment into ourselves. And this investment, it really increases our capacity to serve, our capacity to teach, our capacity to be abundant. Because when we are at source, like we can live with more compassion, we can live with more peace, and herbs can help with all of that. Not to kind of big up herbs, but I am going to big up herbs. They can do a lot of that. And, you know, some of the things that herbs can do is they can be, help us be more effective in our relationships. They can help us better understand our limits and heal from burnout. They can even help us understand and express our emotions. And stuff like that. And also they can help us with making assumptions and taking things personally, like all these different things that you wouldn't think that herbs might necessarily help with, but they can. So that's why I see it as a way of keeping this inner light strong. Yeah, because, you know, it's really important. You can't pour from an empty cup. As you all know, I know I don't have to sell you all in self-care. I know that's why you're here, because you understand that it's really important. But I just want to reiterate, like, it really is an investment, and it pays off. So for me personally, sometimes I have trouble getting the motivation to do some self-care things. But when I remind myself that it's an investment that will pay off, that helps me to do more. And yeah, it just helps you tap into your higher self. And I said before, you know, can help with maintaining inner peace. So talk about dysregulation. Basically, dysregulation is the inability of a person to control or regulate their responses to provocative stimuli. So basically what happens is there's a cycle, like we become dysregulated, basically come out of balance, and then, you know, we deny, we stuff away things, we numb ourselves, and then this actually reinforces the denial, and it blocks healing, and it blocks balance. So we need self-care, because when we take care of ourselves, we are more useful in our roles. Not that it's important to be like useful all the time, but we can do things better. We can do things more efficiently. We can access our innate ability to tackle life's challenges. So that's why it's really important to do self-care. And so I'm sure you can all think of examples of dysregulation. Like for me, I'm a Cancer, so like crying over something stupid, like that's definitely can be an act of dysregulation. Not necessarily, but you know, in my case, it definitely has been. And so, you know, if any of you have any examples that you can think of, feel free to add to the chat. But the first kind of step in that is just noticing when you are in this cycle of dysregulation and saying to yourself, okay, what can I do about this? Like, how can I interrupt this cycle? And you can use herbs for that. So I really, really love plant metaphors, farming metaphors. Like it's kind of my whole thing. 'Cause I love farming and gardening and all that stuff. So I like to think of myself as soil. And so soil needs rest and replenishment. And also in most places, soil doesn't grow things year round. That's another thing to keep in mind. So basically, if you don't find regenerative ways to care for yourself, you will not be a sustainable resource anymore. You will be depleted. So just like the soil. So basically, you have to go fallow. You have to, have a time to recover. And yeah, a piece of land, when it goes fallow, in terms of farmland, it's left with no crops and it's left for a season, sometimes more. And basically what grows in its place are these cover crops. And these cover crops are actually very often powerful herbal medicine. And it's always been interesting to me to think about the fact that the herbs, the weeds, quote unquote, they don't just replenish us, they replenish the soil, they replenish everything. And so usually when farmers are doing cover crops, they'll just take like a handful and it's a mix of seeds. It'll be like barley and wheatgrass, or not wheatgrass, alfalfa and like something else. It'll be like a mix. And so I like to think of like my cover crops as like a mix of like 3 different things. I choose 3 herbs that I know will act on things that I experience a lot. Like, oh, I experience a lot, anxiety a lot. I have this in as part of my cover crop. Helps regenerate me, And so that might be something to ask yourself maybe after this presentation, and about a bunch of different herbs. You can be like, what's my mix of cover crops? Like, what am I going to use to regenerate myself? So keep going. First, there's so many different ways to think about herbal medicine, and to be honest, sometimes I struggle with grouping it. Like, I'm like, how do I categorize different things? So I decided to categorize it basically on the base. So oil, water, alcohol, other things as well. And the first one is oil-based medicine. I really love oil-based medicine, and so I'll be talking about abigania, oil pulling, salves, pessaries, and food. But first, make sure that herbal oils, when you do make them, if you do make them, that they're made with like high quality oil. Like, don't just use your like canola oil. And they can be done hot or cold. So make sure though that if you have fresh herbs that they wilt, basically get some of the moisture out of there, and do that a full day before just covering the herbs in oil. So there's not like a definitive measurement. You just have to make sure that all of the oil is covered. With dry herbs, you can use like a 1-to-5 ratio. So 1 thing of herbs per 5 things of oil. And yeah, a few examples of some oils that you can use are sunflower oil, which is really cheap and it's pretty neutral in scent. Like if you have like a sensitive nose or anything. I personally love olive oil. Olive oil is really popular to make because it's really cheap. It's super nourishing. It's good for people with nut and seed allergies, but it does have a bit of a stronger scent, which I love the smell of olive oil, but not everyone does. So there's that. Sweet almond oil is really great, especially for dry skin and sensitive skin. It has a bit of a light scent, and it's also a little bit more expensive than the other ones. And there's also grapeseed oil, which is really good for oily skin. It's also more expensive than sunflower and olive oil. And of course, there's also butters like shea, coconut butters. They're all good if you're using heat, but if you're not using heat, it's kind of hard to work with them because they're pretty much solid at room temperature. So actually, before I go there, so talk about infusions. Cold infusion is when you put herbs in a jar and you fill it basically all the way up to make sure that it's covered, all the herbs are covered with oil. And then you cap it and you place it in kind of a cool, dark place, shake it daily for 10 days to a month, and then you strain it out. It's pretty simple. You can kind of just basically fill up a mason jar with some herbs and some oils and just kind of leave it, forget it for a few weeks, come back to it, strain it, and then you have some good oil. You can use a warm infusion, which is basically using warmth to get all of the constituents, all the good stuff out of the herbs. But you have to make sure that the temperature is pretty low because oils are really delicate. So you can use like a double boiler on the stovetop, and you put it on really low for like an hour, or you could do the oven at a really low temperature for like 2 hours. You can also just put stuff in the sun. I love doing that. That's my favorite, really, is just to put things in the window, put jars of oil and herbs in the window. It's great. You can do it in your car. You know, if you have like a water heater or something, you can like put it on top of that. I've even heard of people using yogurt makers, but I don't have a yogurt maker, so I have not done that before. Yeah, and just make sure you also use some high quality dried herbs. And yeah, so yeah, also make sure that the jars you're using are dry, that they're sterilized, and that the lids are really tight fitting, just to make sure there's no spoilage. And then after you make oils, you would store them in a cool, dark place. And the shelf life is typically about a year, but that's give or take. Sweet almond oil, it lasts a little bit longer. And so to talk about abigania, this is my favorite thing ever. Basically, the purpose of it is for proper circulation and lymph drainage, and it's just self-oil massage. That's it. And it's one of the things that I really love doing every day, or at least I used to. Lately, I have not been doing it, but it's one of those habits that I have that is really nourishing, and I recommend everyone do it. In Sanskrit, the word sna can be translated to oil and love. So basically in Ayurvedic medicine, there's an inherent connection between enveloping the body in oil and enveloping it in love. So in other words, moisturizing is an act of self-love. So you should always be moisturizing, like no ashiness allowed. Ashiness is a form of self-hate, maybe. Yeah. You can use all sorts of oils, but sesame oil is really common in Ayurvedic medicine. You can use an herbal oil. You can add essential oils to it. Like I like to add bergamot because I just love bergamot, like a few drops to a thing of oil. You can do chamomile or lavender, things that are really relaxing. So I highly recommend, especially doing it in the morning. It just kind of gets your circulation going and it just makes you feel really good. And another thing that you can use with herbal oils is oil pulling. Basically, it's just you put oil in your mouth. You use typically coconut oil. Sometimes people use sesame oil too. And you put some essential oils that you can add to it. Neem, myrrh, licorice, and tulsi. Those are traditionally essential oils that are added to the oil that you would pull or put in your mouth and swish around and spit out. And yeah, we also have some salves here. It's basically just a combination of oils and wax. So I am vegan, so I use candida wax, and there's also carnauba wax, but a lot of people use beeswax as well. There's a million different types of wax. So typically salves are used to treat wounds, skin abrasions, or just dry skin, rashes, and it just does that by keeping the healing properties of the herbs like on the skin surface. So if you want to make those, it's 1 part wax to 4 parts oil. And yeah, the shelf life is typically 1 to 2 years. And so as far as the herbs that you can use, comfrey is a really good herb for small cuts and for extra dry and cracked skin. Lavender is really fragrant. It's really good for repairing damaged skin. And I don't know if anyone grew up with like Vicks Vapor Rub or anything like that, but you can make your own using camphor, and using like eucalyptus, peppermint oils, like all those things clear sinuses, they ease breathing during cold flu season. So that's one thing that I definitely recommend having is a salve with some kind of mentholizing agent. And you can also make a muscle soothing salve. You You can use camphor for that as well. You can use arnica. It's really good after injuries or exercise. You can use St. John's wort, which has pain relieving and anti-inflammatory properties. I love salves. Like, you don't need to have necessarily like a cut or bruise or anything to use them. I just kind of use it as like an oil, you know, or like a hand oil. All right, and pessaries. I know this is something that I notice people never talk about, which totally makes sense because it's like kind of gross, you know, because pessaries are the same thing as suppositories. You can make your own, and it's not hard. Typically, cocoa butter is used just because it's solid at a room temperature, but it melts at body temperature. And you can make some molds using, if you just like wrap aluminum foil squares around a Sharpie, just the bottom closed, then you can make some molds. And you could basically knead these herbs, like if you ground them into a powder, you knead those herbs into the cocoa butter. And so Oregon grape root and golden seal root are good for like yeast infections and bacterial vaginosis. As far as like hemorrhoids and stuff, it's marshmallow root, witch hazel leaf. That's something you can try if you feel like it, you know? And so one of my favorite ways to integrate herbs into my life is just through foods. So you can make salad oil. I really love thyme. Like as far as for salad oils and cooking oils, like thyme, tarragon, garlic, all those things like enhance the food's flavor, but they also add nutritional properties and beneficial properties to your food. You can also just like, you know, eat raw, like a lot of herbs raw, like dandelion, violet leaves, like all sorts of flowers are really good in salads. And stinging nettles are really good, but you have to steam or blanch them because otherwise they'll like sting your face, you know? But yeah, you can obviously, you know, make tea, but you can also put teas in your foods, like instead of water. So for example, cookies, like I've made like a lavender tea and then used that water to make like cookies. And so you can do things like that. You can also make like a sweetener, like a simple syrup, or, you know, a lot of people infuse honey. You can add some powdered herbs to like porridge and oatmeals and stuff like that. I also have these, like, I call them bliss balls that you can use, and you can put a bunch of these herbs that are really great for digestion and that are really like stimulating and enlivening. And you should have a link to the presentation somewhere. So if you want this recipe or, you know, any of this information, you should be able to get it. All right, so talking about water-based medicine, so many different types. All right, so as far as water-based medicine, of course, there's tea, the obvious one. So tea, medicinal strength tea is often stronger than just regular tea. So, you know, you might buy tea from the store, it tells you to like leave for 2 to 3 minutes. Like medicinal tea is gonna be a lot longer than that. You know, it'll be usually closer to 15 minutes or even longer. You can also do a cold infusion. You can just put herbs in like a water bottle or like a mason jar or something, and, you know, just leave them overnight, go to sleep, and then wake up, and you can either drink them cold or you could drink it hot, like you can heat it up. Yeah, so syrups are another type of, basically syrups are an infusion, some kind of tea, you know, but it's preserved with a sweetener. So if you want to make simple syrup, you can like make a tea out of, and I'll be talking about different herbal properties later to figure out like, okay, I want to do syrup, but I don't know what herb I want to do. I'll be talking about actual specific herbs later. But a syrup is a really fun way to get some herbs in you because it tastes really good, obviously. You can use white sugar, or you can use honey as well, as another thing that people do. And then, yeah, saline solution. This is another thing that I feel like is kind of like underrated. Well, at least for me, because I have so many sinus issues and I like, you know, my eyes always get itchy and stuff like that. So I really value having saline solutions. Just really important to have like one like round teaspoon for 1 quart, because you don't want to have too many, because obviously you don't want to burn your eyes or your nose. um, for your eyes, eye bright is really good. Like if you made a saline solution that had eye bright in it, you basically make a tea, like you don't actually wash it with the herbs still in it. Also demulcent and vulnerary herbs, which I will be talking about what those are later. And for your nose, basically for a neti pot, you can use, I recommend a few drops of ginger tincture, not like a ginger tea, because a ginger tea is going to be too spicy. Like 2 drops of a ginger tincture, it'll be fine. And it's actually like, it's good for flushing stuff out. As far as like chamomile is really good for soothing, like the nasal passages. Ragweed, if you're not allergic to it, is actually really good for allergies. Obviously, if you're allergic to it, then you shouldn't do that. And a lot of these other herbs are also good for just moistening or soothing the nasal passages. And then for your throat, these are all really good to gargle, for sore throat, for scratchy throat. Yeah, these are all great things to make a tea out of that you can gargle. All right, and then we also have steams, which I love steams. There's something about a steam that just like really just brightens my day. I think it's the aromatherapy. So you can use a facial steam, which it opens up your clogged nasal passages, can flush out allergens, and some really good herbs for that are chamomile and lavender, so they're really relaxing, and thyme and sage, rosemary, mint. You can also use essential oils, not too much, but a few drops. Eucalyptus, lavender, rosemary, chamomile, frankincense, spearmint, tea tree, those are all really good. You can also do a yoni steam, which enhances fertility, improves sexual health, balances hormones, regulates the menstrual cycle. And with that, you can use basil, use rosemary, oregano, calendula, motherwort, mugwort, and I put marigolds, but I think I meant calendula. They're actually pretty much the same thing. Oh yeah, as far as what they do, so basil helps move fluids. Rosemary is antibacterial and antimicrobial. Oregano is antiseptic and antispasmodic. Calendula is anti-inflammatory. Motherwort is really good for cramping and infections. Mugwort is kind of just good all-purpose. And yeah, marigolds, anti-inflammatory. And okay, let's see what's next. Yeah, so another thing that you could use herbs for is compress. So compress is when you soak a natural fiber in a tea. There's also a poultice, which is what is actually depicted here. It's a sack filled with herbs that's soaked in hot water. Just in general, people don't use these on broken skin. So you can use marshmallow. Hold on 1 second. I'm just like looking at my notes. Yeah, so some good herbs for that are, yeah, marshmallow, rose, calendula, lavender, meadowsweet, cramp bark, mullein, ginger, linden. Lots of different herbs that you can use for calming, for like anti-inflammatory properties. Most of them work on those kind of levels. And then hydrotherapy is basically just another word for bath. But it's really important. Hydrotherapy is really great, not only on like a physical level, but also I think on a spiritual level. It's really good to take spiritual baths, in my opinion. Obviously, you make your own choices. Generally, hot baths stimulate circulation and therefore kind of stimulate your whole body. And cold baths, after a while, they act as a tranquilizer. Basically, they make your body numb. And in general, short baths stimulate no matter the temperature. Like if you are in normal body temperature, you jump in a hot bath, you jump out, that's going to stimulate you. If you do the same thing with cold water, that's going to stimulate you. If you do that with hot water, you get used to it, you relax. you know, so it relaxes you. Cold water, it numbs your entire body, so you're totally relaxed. And some great herbs that are very calming are lavender. Peppermint is pretty enlivening. Sage and rosemary, really great herbs. Thyme. I really love hyssop and blue vervain as like spiritual herbs, like for spiritual baths. And they also have good physical properties as well, but I really love their spiritual protective benefits. So highly recommend those herbs for baths. And I love flower essences. I'm kind of obsessed with flower essences. So if anything, if you leave here with anything, like remember to, you can make your own flower essences. I actually do because it's so easy to make. And here's some instructions how you do it. Basically, you just go out, pick some flowers, and put them in some water. They have to be in the sun for preferably 4 hours, so it's good to do it in the morning, and they should be face up. If you're making a moon essence, you can do this when the moon is full. And with flower essences, the thing that it works on is it works on like a vibrational level. So unlike a lot of these other things I mentioned, which are really acting on like physical aspects of the body, this is acting on like the more like subtle and the more spiritual and emotional aspects of the body. And also, if you are making your own flower essence, just make sure that you meditate with the plant, you ask for permission, and you just tune into whatever messages you might be receiving from the plant, because if the plant doesn't want you to pick it, then that medicine is not going to be good. So you just have to listen to the plant. And so here are a few flower essences that you can make, at least in the Pacific Northwest. Like most of these things are weeds and are pretty much everywhere, or they're easily accessible at a grocery store. So blackberries grow everywhere here in Portland, and it's really great. The flower essence is really good for pushing forward in life and for grounding your ideas in reality. It could also help you stand up for what you believe and to be more fruitful. So borage is actually my favorite flower essence. It's for the heavy-hearted, and it's for lack of confidence when facing challenges. They say borage is for courage. And what's interesting about flower essences is they really show up when you need them. Like I was having a really hard time, like it was a few years ago. I don't know if y'all remember that huge snowstorm that we had where it was like everyone was trapped in their homes for weeks, and it was freezing, and like, I had like, a living situation that wasn't ideal, and I was really kind of suffering. And as soon as it hit spring, like I'm talking like a 5-foot borage plant just grew in front of my door. Like I had to step over it to get into my place. And I was like, what is this borage? I ended up making flower essences from it, and it was just incredible medicine. So just pay attention to what flowers and what herbs are around you, because you might actually need them. And you can download an app, like if you just search flower identifying or plant identification, there's a million plant identification apps which are really helpful. Anyway, so just to continue on, dandelion flower essence is very grounding and energizing. It helps you to feel strong and present in your body. It's really good for like hard driving and like overstriving type of people. So it helps reduce stress and remove tension. Lavender, as you can imagine, is very calming and sensitive. That's soothing for a sensitive soul. It's for people that are really been overstimulated. And basically it brings the awareness back into our body when our consciousness becomes too like overextended through like extreme mental activity, through extreme physical activity, through any kind of extreme, even spiritual activity. And yarrow is really great for maintaining boundaries. It's basically, it helps you maintain a luminous and strong auric field, which I think that sounds amazing. So it just helps you to I'm just seeing all these comments. Let's see, I just want to answer these quickly because I know that I don't have too much time. Is it possible to use ferns? I have never used ferns before personally. I mean, I don't know if aloe counts as a fern. I don't think it does. I personally have never used ferns, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a thing. There's a lot I don't know, and there's so many different types of herbalism. So I would say, I don't know, look it up. Sorry, I don't have a good answer for that. For water used for saline solutions, I use distilled water, definitely, or you can also use pre-boiled water that you cool down. Just make sure that it's cool before you're putting it like in your nose or anything. Especially with neti pots, there was instances of people using tap water and getting like brain eating, like flesh eating, like bacteria in their nose from that. So very important. Use distilled water, use pre-boiled water. Don't just use tap water. As far as the slides, I will post the link again. There's the link to the slides. Let's see. Can you use kitchen herbs? I use like honestly mostly kitchen herbs. Like rosemary is really great. Thyme. Yeah, there's so many different herbs, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the herbs in 1 second. Is there a resource you recommend to easily see what the possible benefits of each are? So that's a hard one. I don't feel like there's any like one. I mean, there might be some kind of online resource that has like an encyclopedia of everything, but I mostly just bought some books and the recommendations of people, which now I can't exactly remember which books I read, but also just, yeah, like if you go to like herbalist like websites and stuff, like even like Mountain Rose, you can go through, they have a huge list of herbs that they sell, and on each herbs page it says what it does, so that could be a resource. Let's see, a phallic steam, not that I know of, but you know, I honestly haven't looked into it, so yeah, I would say, yeah, something to look up. Tips for aromatherapy, you have kids or pets. Yes, so don't use essential oils on small children or children under 6, I would say. I mean, there's different people say different things, and I'm sure like a lot of these like essential oil NLM moms would totally disagree with me, but I don't usually recommend using essential oils on like small children. And also with pets, you know, there's a lot of toxic herbs that and essential oils that are really bad for pets. So as a general rule, I just kind of stay away. And there's also a lot of conflicting information. Like I've heard cedar essential oil is fine for pets. I've also seen online that it's like deadly for them. So I would say like stay away from pets and essential oils as far as aromatherapy goes. So dry it and then what? Soak in water. I'm not sure what that exactly was referring to. But yeah, feel free to write in the chat if you have any clarifying things to add. Tips for accessible or simplified harvesting. Yeah, I feel like in general, like with flowers at least, like harvest when they're at their peak, but berries you kind of do like right before their peak. As far as like accessible or simplified, I mean, for me, I'm kind of a wild crafter, and I just kind of get stuff like often like around the neighborhood, and I often just kind of go with what's like physically accessible to me as far as like what's close and what's easily available. So it really depends on where you're harvesting and how you're harvesting. Like if you're doing it in your backyard, then for me, sometimes I'll just let things grow taller, even though you're not necessarily supposed to, just because I don't want to bend over. So that's something that's fine to do, you know? So what else? And there's also a lot of really great tools as far as like pads you can use if you do want to get on your knees. There's a lot of cool different pads, or you can even just use a blanket just to protect your knees. I know for me personally, I have like knee issues, and that helps me out. If I think of any more tips, I'll let you all know. You soak the flowers after drying. Oh, you don't actually dry them. You just put them in the water. Like you get the flowers and you just make sure like you pinch off so there's no like stem, and you just put them face up in the water, and then you do that until you kind of have to talk to the flower, and you just do that until the flower tells you it's done, which is usually, you know, some hours. And then after it's done, then you have like a mother, and then you dilute it further, and that mother you like dilute in water, and then you add some like brandy or alcohol to it just to preserve it. And then you drink it. You can add it to your baths, but I drink it usually. Sorry I didn't clarify that, because I didn't provide a ton of information. So you just soak it until it feels ready in the sun, or you can use moonlight as well. And then you just add it to your water. It's usually what I do is add it to my water. I was taking borage flower essence basically with my water every day for a while. And so for tinctures, if you're doing dry herbs, it's 1 part herb to 5 parts menstruum. The menstruum is just the alcohol, basically. And so for fresh, it's 1 to 2. And we have bitters, which also use alcohol, and angelica, gentian, dandelion, ginger. Those are all really good for bitters, and it's good for stimulating digestive juices. And then instead of alcohol, you can use apple cider vinegar or glycerin if you need to for any reason. And all right, so here's some adaptogens. These herbs, they support the body's natural ability to deal with stress. That's why they're called adaptogens, to help your body adapt to like whatever challenges. And so my favorite herbs that do this are ginseng, rhodiola rosacea, reishi, which is a mushroom, ashwagandha, holy basil, also known as tulsi, and then sejanja berry. I always have trouble saying that. And astringent herbs. So these herbs are good for what they say, like watery secretions, which sounds disgusting, but it is what it is. It helps tighten up those tissues and reduce inflammation and irritation. So basically think like allergies and sinus problems. Raspberry leaf's really good for that. Raspberry leaf is also good for menstrual cramps. Yerba Santa, Yerba Mansa, elderflower, yarrow, self-heal, rose, those are all astringent herbs. And then vulnerary herbs, they promote healing of the tissues. So they're really helpful in cases of tissue damage. So comfrey, calendula, plantain, chamomile, self-heal. Comfrey and plantain and even self-heal are pretty abundant in terms of herbs that like as weeds that grow in the Pacific Northwest. So definitely I recommend downloading one of those like plant identification apps, because you never know, like you could have a whole neighborhood full of this stuff. I know I do. And so there's also demulcent herbs. They soothe tissues and relieve discomfort. So comfrey, slippery elm, marshmallow, violet are all examples that. And then, there are a few other aspects of self-care. Obviously, herbs can't do everything. So I just want to remind folks to practice self-compassion, to do digital detox, develop some routines or rituals, enforce boundaries, move a little if you can, get creative, clean. I know I definitely have to do that one. Eat, rest, just do lifestyle balance, cultivate gratitude, do some breath work. So, just remember to take self-care. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I don't have to convince you all, but just remember that lack of self-care contributes to burnout. So even if you're just taking a moment to take a cup of tea, like it's worth it. Like, or if you want to do like a steam of your face, all those things can help contribute to your ability to sustain yourself and continue engaging in, what you do every day. So I kind of rushed through that towards the end because I wanted to make sure we left on time. But let me see the chat again, make sure that there's questions. Talk about the difference and lifespan of dried versus fresh herbs. So dried herbs last way longer just because of the moisture content. Basically, herbs, they're more at risk of spoiling because of the moisture content. So I don't know the exact difference, but dried herbs, I feel like last forever, definitely years, versus fresh herbs, like within a few months, if not less, it will like they'll start to go bad. So in general, I recommend dried herbs if you're not like going through herbs a lot. And let's see. Is there a way to use essential oils in a way that respects the sovereignty of the plant, considering how extractive it is? Yeah, that's a really good question. And I also wonder that myself. It's kind of one of the reasons why I've strayed away from using essential oils. I know that there are ways that you can make it yourself, but that involves the whole distillation process, which I don't know how to do, and I don't have the tools for that, and I doubt anyone else here does either. But one thing I have started doing is making hydrosols, which are another form of distilled like plant essence, but it's way less extractive, and you can just like do it at home. I did not put instructions here, but yeah, if you Google like hydrosol, there should be some plenty of tutorials. Like basically, it's just kind of a double boil kind of method. Do you simply soak the herbs after drying for flower essence and what? Oh wait, I think I did ask that. I answered that. Okay. Are there any groups of herbalists or foragers you know of up here? Finding cedar, huckleberry, marshmallow has been tough for me. Yeah. I know that there was like, I think there was a Facebook group that was like POC foragers, or I think that was a mushroom foraging group. Yeah, I don't know of any groups that do that up here, at least. Yeah, I don't really know of any groups. Sorry, I'm not that helpful. Reishi and ashwagandha is something a pregnant person would have to not use until postpartum. That, I'm not actually 100% sure about. That's something that definitely would require more research. I'm not 100%. I feel that they are safe, but I don't want to say that because I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, I would say definitely do a little bit more research before using those. Plant ID app, I'm trying to remember the one that I use. It's called Picture This. Do you do a course on astrology and plants? Not yet, but I do want to do one day. But yeah, not there yet. Is there a place we can get a list of these herbs for reference? Yeah, I had my document where I talked. Here, I'll put it again just in case. Oops, nope, I didn't need to do that. Okay, yeah, so all the herbs that I talk about are in there. Okay, let's see. Someone asked where I buy herbs. The people, I forgot the name of the farm. The people's, basically they're in Syracuse, I want to say, or Ithaca. But they have a farm, like there's a Black-owned farm. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But I also, like I said, I wildcraft a lot. Like I'll take these plant walks where I just like walk around my neighborhood and see, like use that Picture This app and try and figure out what's in my neighborhood. And then I'll just use that oftentimes. I'm just trying to look for the name of, it's like the People's Herbal something. Sorry, I'm blanking out. I'm looking for it though. Oh, I know we're over time, so I appreciate y'all if you have to leave, but I can stay and finish answering these questions. Is there an instruction in there if I were to look around if the word put CBD? I'm not sure. I actually don't use CBD in my stuff, like not for any particular reason. I just don't know about it. So yeah, I mean, sorry, I don't know. Oh, best herb for each astrological element. Oh my God. I feel like that's, oh man, that's a whole nother class. It really depends on what the purpose is, So like the herbs for each astrological sign that are like aromatherapy herbs are going to be much different than like if you do, for example, medical astrology, which says that the signs cover different parts of the body. So I don't know, that's hard to answer. But yeah, I think I'm still trying to look for that one person. Well, People's Herbal School or something like that. I don't know. Try looking up the People's Herbal School and see if that does it. Let me see. People's Medicine School, I think it's called. Yeah, so there's a farm there. It's Black owned. I'm trying to remember the name of the farm. Okay, just Google People's Medicine School and it should come up as far as what the name of the farm is. It should come up somehow. All right. Herbal course recommendation. Definitely People's Medicine School, as I just mentioned. I like them. They're really cool. I took a class a while ago, the Queering Herbalism class with Toy, I forgot their last name, Toy Scott, I think the last name is. So definitely recommend the Queering Herbalism course. Yeah, and the People's Medicine School. Yeah, those two. Yeah, any other questions before we wrap up? Cool. Well, yeah, like I said, I'm doing an astrology class, basically on using astrology to figure out your destiny. And here's the link. Feel free to follow me on all the things. Hopefully that wasn't too much information like jammed down your throat. I always struggle trying to like pack as much as possible in a short period of time. So I hope that you got something out of it, or at least you have a good place to start as far as like researching things for yourself. But I appreciate you all being here and listening to me ramble. Oh, do I have a personal mantra offering for the plant you're harvesting in fortune? I don't have like a personal mantra per se. I usually just like I will say like hello and then kind of listen, and then like I will try and figure out what energy is coming towards me, and then depending on the energy is like what I respond. So if I like am like saying hello to a plant and just kind of like, you know, I might feel the leaf or smell it or something, you know, I might just be interacting with it. And if it's like, get away from me, I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, have a good day. But if it's like, tell me more, then I'll ask maybe like, hey, can I harvest you today? So that's usually what I do. It's not like, yeah, any kind of mantra. It's more like a conversation. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess that's it. Well, I will stop sharing my screen. And, oops, is it working? Oh, sorry. Oh, I think my computer is like crashing right now. I have like 50 tabs open. Well, I am going to exit out, and I think that might end the call. So again, thank you all for coming, and hope to see you in the future.
I'm gonna hop off too, unless you guys need anything else from me, but that was great. See you in a bit at the community gathering. Woo.
Siobhan, should I go ahead and end the meeting for everybody? Or? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you stop the recording, or was that supposed to be?
Stop.